Hello, hello, my beautiful friends and colleagues. It's Izabela Joe here, inviting you for another epic episode of Leadership Roundtables. We're here with you today during the Walking Week in this series that we're tackling some of the hottest topics and also the most important issues that we're facing, either in our working environment, in our own reputable industries or nations. And we're tackling everything from global and of course local perspective as well. So we look forward to seeing your comments, engaging with you, and definitely getting some of your amazing questions. We're having here Mariette that is joining us from France. I'm so glad, Mariette, you could be here with us, and this will be a great opportunity also for you to share your perspective. So to tackle this particular episode, we're really looking at three-pronged approach that we want to focus on today. And we're first starting with something that I feel like every single one of us, specifically in the leadership role or that wants to shine as a leader, have a tremendous opportunity. Guess what? To make an impact together. And we are doing something very special. So Joe, do you mind explaining what are we doing and how they can participate?
Yes, so everybody knows the tragic events happening in Ukraine with Russia and Ukraine war. There's a massive amount of incalculable and unimaginable suffering happening. One of the things that we can do is just sit for a minute and think about, visualize if you can, what it means to have your entire home, schools, hospitals, communities, churches, neighborhood, city, absolutely destroyed. Now think about people who have nobody else, people who are sick, dying, invalid, paralyzed. What could we possibly do in a situation like that? Who is coming to help? As you know, I lived in the Soviet Union, in the former Soviet Union, for almost 10 years. Obviously, a large part of my adult life has been connected to that space, and including Ukraine. I've visited Ukraine many times. I have friends who still live there now trying to cope with the realities. And I have other friends in Russia who are trying to cope with their own realities of limited information, of Russian mentality and national pride, or whatever you want to call it, and to a certain amount of brainwashing and history of being oppressors. We don't have to go down that road right now, but that's the position we find ourselves in. The position Russians find themselves in is having to take one side of this argument or another. The position Ukrainians find themselves in is that their entire lives have been not disrupted, they've been destroyed. They have to either figure out how to survive in the space they're in now. More than 10 million people have become refugees. They have to go to new countries, learn new languages, figure out how to provide for their families. The state treasury is spending $100 million a day on this war. There are mothers, I think Izabela mentioned last time, who are pregnant and giving birth prematurely because of the massive amount of stress. Now, look, I'll tell you this quite frankly. I've done a lot of good things for people, but I've never stood up for a cause in a public way the way that I'm doing right now. Together with Izabela, we are organizing a fundraiser for Ukraine, July 10th in Los Angeles, together for ukrainenow.org. Ukrainenow.org is an amazing organization that was stood up on the day that the war began. And in the span of about a week, they pulled together 2,000 volunteers from around the world. And to date, they've collected or provided and services and supplies in a value of more than $2.5 million. One person did that. So my question for myself is, as a single person, what is it that I can do? So fortunately, I've teamed up with Izabela over the months to work on projects. We've teamed up with Ukrainenow.org. We've also teamed up with Ukrainian Culture Center in Los Angeles and with government officials and private entities in Ukraine itself to pull together the best of us, the best of ourselves, that we can provide some kind of hope and some kind of support for Ukraine. So July 10th, Sunday from 3 to 6, we will be in Los Angeles at the Ukraine Culture Center. If you're within striking distance, by all means, please come and join us. We'll also be live streaming. We'll be on YouTube and Facebook and other platforms. It's imperative that we do something, not from a political perspective, from a human perspective. People are suffering unimaginable consequences. People who have nothing to do with this argument, people that just want to go along with their daily lives and support their families and raise their children.
I love this powerful delivery, and I'm so glad you're sharing that from men's perspective. And for many people that want to say, wow, you guys are so much now focusing on Ukraine, it's so much other suffering around the world. Everybody that knows me, my background, I used to work very closely with people from over 120 countries, people that actually suffered war trauma, genocide, torture, that became refugees, that escaped their countries. And this all happened in the last few decades, which is constituting more than a half of the world. Many people also may or may not know that I'm a former refugee myself from the conflict that happened in the heart of Europe. But what people don't know, implication of this particular war, how is affecting, because of what Ukraine used to do, supply the food and supplied support to so many countries around the world. They're affected greatly, and we're, with all the post-COVID and COVID situation, seeing tremendous implications where there will be shortages of the most essential supply, because they're known as quote unquote bread basket, delivering food and basics that bread can be made, not just in Europe, guys, for other parts of the world, including different continents from Africa to Asia, and some parts of actually Middle East. So when we look at all of those implications are affecting every single one of us. As a former educator, kids are insanely close to home and close to heart, because I know what it does to affect children, specifically no matter what age they are, during the war. And I want to share one story that might resonate with all of you. And I know it's a working day, and some of them are for you, depending where you're joining us, end of the working day. And you're participating, sharing some really, really beautiful messages. And it's a great to also hear what Mariam says. She is in France right now, and she already seen, as being in Europe, how this implication of Ukraine war affecting and food shortages. And those are shortages that create panic, that create scarcity, that create fear. We just no longer go ahead of tremendous shortages of baby formula, and we had to also take something and drastic measures that we never seen before. The government had to approve military airplanes to go pick up the food, because kids with specific needs and allergies could not get it and will die, or otherwise they will not be able to maintain their illnesses and severity, and they needed a special types of ingredients and types of formulas, or just in general food supplied specific to them. But we're also seeing medication and everything else, and ripple effect is tremendous. And when we say we're not affected, I know that specific Europe, it's been affected always with very high price of gas. That was the reality we always have to face. The price gas right now, it's off the roof even for Europe that used to see it. We're also seeing now math of that in the United States. But where I wanted to really land is how much, as adults, that we have control and knowledge and power and relationships. We cannot be on the back seat any longer, because when we're on the back seat, we just let events like this slide and get worse and worse by minute, while our dear friends perish. And when it's too late, it's too late. And what I wanted to also make sure here, and we're seeing here opportunity from Belinda asking a really powerful question. Will the fundraiser in July also be streamed live? Yes, absolutely will. I shared the link, I will share it again. And what is beautiful about that, no matter where you are in the world, you can join us, because you're going to hear some amazing, powerful stories. You're going to hear from government from Ukraine as well, amazing NGOs that are working 24/7, sleeping less than 4 hours a day, going to all these areas to support and give and do, because they don't have a moment of break. They don't have a time to take a break, because life depends minute by minute. Day goes by minute, hour by hour, while we're looking and planning things months and months ahead in advance. Such a contrasting picture, isn't it? But what is also very beautiful here, I just wanted to point out, like, and I love Liga's heart. As an educator, she can resonate. We're seeing so many children actually that cannot leave, that are trapped. Their parents are working 24/7 around the clock. Like we were just talking with Suplina International, the journalists empowered, that they're delivering phenomenal news and provide independent news 24/7 to their Ukrainians around safety, around what's available, so that they can go and get the resources. But that is also coming with the sacrifice. They have their own children that they can send to school camps. They have also other implications here, right? So I wanted to say how important it is to look at things from bigger perspective. Every little thing and every little initiative with your expertise can count and can make a tremendous difference. And we, my friends, wanted to make sure that we engage in you with us together, because nothing happens if we're doing this alone, right? So we have a great opportunity to do something amazingly together. And I just wanted to say thank you for caring. Mohammed, I really appreciate you here to join us from Bahrain. I know it's in the Middle East, and I know it's late in the evening. So thank you for being here with us. And the beauty is, with these lives, specifically on LinkedIn, we're all professionals. We're all the people that have something that we can do, not only in our own companies, but in our own communities. And we have a chance to really look at, when we all rise up and stand together, we can overtake evil. We can stop things from happening, because when masses rise up together for the right things, magic happens. Joe, what are your thoughts?
So here's the dominant thought in my head right now. 1 + 1 does not equal 2 anymore. 1 + 1 equals 16,000, equals 32 million, equals this astronomical number that we can bring, that comes in the shape of hope and support. I think about my interactions with Izabela in the past 5 months, 6 months, that she's brought to the table her knowledge, her experience, her hurt and pains from her own situation as a refugee, and her contacts and her ideas. And I bring all of mine to the table. And my experiences growing up, my experiences living in Russia, my experiences as a teacher, as a writer, as a speaker. When you put 1 and 1 together in this case, it equals helping a country. It equals reaching out to all the people we have in our networks. It equals tapping into ourselves to create something far bigger than we could have imagined and would have been possible otherwise. As she just said, a single person, it's not going to be a lot. If you can't mobilize and enlist the good hearts of people around you to realize that everything we have can easily go away. We could easily, by accident of birth, be Ukrainian and be stuck in the middle of this. But by accident of birth, we ended up where we ended up. France, America, England, Croatia, wherever. And we've been unbelievably fortunate as a result of that accident. When I was growing up, we had this idea of giving back. It was actually a requirement. I grew up with 11 siblings and an immigrant father. And growing up was part of the family thread, part of the family philosophy, that we give back. Why? Because we've been given an outrageous abundance of fortune and wealth, and not only financially. We have the freedom to be ourselves. We have the freedom to go to sleep at night, by and large, without wondering if our home will be blown up. It's really that simple. So we go forward, we tap into our relationships, we tap into our networks, our personal networks, our business relationships, and we spread the word. But just not spreading the word, we spread the word about doing something. When in the years after the Holocaust, we always said, never forget, never forget. Okay, now is the time not to forget. Now is the time to remember. And we can't remember passively, having it as a passing thought as we walk through the house or go to the store. That kind of remembering actually doesn't help that much. We have to be active in our remembrance of suffering of the past and make it mean something. The deaths of all those people in the former Yugoslavia, in the Holocaust, in all those kinds of unjust, disgusting humanitarian tragedies that have occurred, to me, my opinion, are meaningless if they happen again and we do nothing. Like I told you, I'm not used to talking like this. I'll be quite frank with you. I'm not used to talking like this and sticking myself out for a cause. And the great people around me over the years in my life have taught me to do that. And now is the time. Because Ukraine is a place I understand. It's people I understand. And so it's really wrenching at my heart. And here's the real challenge. Let's all do it, even if we don't know anyone in particular. You know why? Because we know our families. We know our friends. We know that when 9/11 happened and you were in striking distance of New York City, you were absolutely devastated. I know I was. I had friends who died in World Trade Center. And that's one incident, a painful, horrific incident, but that was one incident. In Ukraine, the entire culture, language, history, identity, ethnic identity, grouping as a people is at threat. And by the way, I'm not exaggerating. When Russian government officials talk about getting rid of the Ukrainian language, when they talk about getting rid of Ukrainians as a people, I would just believe them. I would believe them. I would believe that that's what they think. And now we take the action that we need to take to make sure that doesn't happen.
And they already proved them that they're not only that we should believe them, but that we should be taking it uberly serious. Because when we look at about history and growing up in Europe, both of us, actually, even though you didn't grow up in Europe, but you lived in Europe, were versed and pushed into understanding the history and having subject matter expertise in Russia and their mindset and how they are all about and what matters to them, what makes them angry, what makes them explode, what makes them to act the way they do, and how far they're willing to go. We know what happened in 30s when over 7 million Ukrainians perished. We know what happens when also in 90s and simultaneously when we were battling former Yugoslavia with similar DNA and understanding of what was going on with us, with same doctrine and actually, frankly, training and mindset, and what we're seeing right now. For me, this is a deja vu. And again, my dear friends and colleagues, this is not about politics. This is about pure understanding how world and globe works and understanding how more than anything during globalization, during current time, during 21st century, we're all connected. This is also the power of understanding what it means to be part of the community. Broader community, not the one that you feel safe and comfortable, that is either part of your church or your child's soccer team or whatever it might be, or single wives or whatever, moms or dads, but community that actually goes further and deeper. An opportunity to have a global community where we really understand what is acceptable. Because guess what? What we do not act upon and we allow it to continues to happen, we're automatically given pass and we accept. Somebody very smart and wise that I met that I absolutely love is the president of Ukrainian Center community and center in LA, Larissa. And Larissa does her regular job, and on top of that, she shows up not only as a president, but someone who wants to make a shift and change. And we'll have her in our live as a guest in future weeks. But why I'm bringing her up, she said something very, very powerful. And I can't wait to also share with you her podcast that's coming up, where you can hear all of her brilliance firsthand and how amazing it is to have a powerful woman understanding something but hit me deeply and profoundly when she said, Izabela, atrocities during former Yugoslavia were horrible, but at least you had a one thing. That one thing was prosecution and Hague and opportunity to prosecute criminals of the war and ethnic cleansing and genocide and torture and all of those things you experienced firsthand and witnessed during the time how powerful, way before even World Wide Web, is propaganda, news, and media. How your neighbors and friends and colleagues, doesn't matter which ethnic side they're on, even your own, can flip and switch and be on a different side and do unspeakable. We never had that. Imagine history repeating itself over and over without ever having justice and opportunity for accountability of actions, for prosecution as a result of those actions. This calls for such a bigger, thought-provoking question. If we allow that in 21st century, with everything that we have available right now, can you, honestly, seriously, can you, as a parent, as a human being, as a person of power, of title, position, and opportunity, look at yourself in a mirror and say, I'm okay with that? Because what kills us the most, it's not love and hate game, because not opposite of love, it's hate, or hate, it's love. But it is exactly indifference. And that indifference, what is creating is not building the global community, which is also a segue of why we're doing what we're doing and why we're leveraging and utilizing this platform to really step up. Do you guys think it's easy? For specifically Joe, as he mentioned, he never could be that open and direct from his background and who he was and who he has all the ties and relationship and understanding, but comes to the point when you strip down and take away, I'm not anymore this and doesn't matter. And even if I am, I'm still on the end of the day, the human being looking myself in the mirror and looking at myself within deeply, soul searching and saying, I can still look at you in the mirror today because I know I did everything I could possibly do.
So on today's live, we wanted to talk about Ukraine. We wanted to bring your attention to it. But it's also a live on leadership. So we wanted to take the Ukraine topic and attach it to some really important leadership skills and leadership practices. And the point that Izabela just made was about building global community. And I wanted to take a couple of minutes and just talk about what's standing behind this fundraiser, what's standing behind this action that we're doing in terms of leadership and building relationships. Because here's the bottom line. If you can't build relationships, you're dead in the water, especially these days. Relationships are hyper socialized, hyper technologized, all over the internet, social media platforms. If you can't build those relationships, then you're dead in the water. And if you can't build them in person, you're also behind the eight ball, because technology is fine. But when I meet you in person, I want to have that same feeling. I want to know that the person that you presented yourself as in social media is the same person in real life. So when you think about 1 + 1 = 32 million, in this situation with the Ukrainian, just with the Ukrainian fundraiser, I had to meet Izabela 6-7 months ago through whatever weird universe message is sent to us to connect. And I had to be open to that connection. She had to be open to that connection. Then we had to talk. Then we had to have the courage to talk. Then we had to talk in honest ways. Then we had to talk about projects we're interested in and who can we bring to the table. And we found out about ukrainenow.org and the great work that they're doing and said, oh, you know what? We need to be part of that because we have the capacity to help. So let's activate that capacity and go help. And one after another, people started showing up. Larissa, the president of Ukraine Culture Center that Izabela was talking about, was one of the most recent people that came into our orbit. And all of a sudden, she said, "Oh, I love what you guys are doing. Let me open my network to you." Another massive piece of the puzzle. This is how it works. And if you're not prepared to work that, then it's going to be very difficult. So what does it take? Number one, it actually takes some courage. And not the courage of leading a country through war, but it may be all the courage you have. It may be all the courage that you can muster to approach somebody you do not know, that you're worried about. What if they don't like me? What if they think I'm silly? What if I don't have the right words? What if they judge me? What if I feel awful? All these things that run through our heads. You know what? Those are the things that are stopping you from having an amazing, fuller life, an amazing, fuller business, and the possibility to do things for people who have less than you. I'll give you a quick little story. Very quick little story. I walked into a networking event, 7 o'clock in the morning, 75 people, and I didn't know a single person. And I had that moment. The anxiety started increasing. My heart starts racing. I'm getting a little sweaty. And I actually turned around to leave. And I had to stop myself. I said, listen, you write books about fear and emotional intelligence and resilience. Turn around and get back in that room. Okay, so the thing that I had to do was create a game. And so often the toughest things that we have to get through, we can create a game around it so that our mind is focused on the game and not the fear. The game that I played that day was I stood at the edge of the group. I looked around the entire room. I found the group that was smiling and laughing. And I walked right up to them and I said, I really don't want to be here, but I wanted to find the friendliest, happiest group in the room. And that's you guys. And what do you think they did? They all started laughing and said, oh, welcome. And off we go. That's what's standing between you and opening up a huge vista of contacts, networks, opportunities, possibilities that you can't even imagine when you're sitting at home or sitting behind your desk. Because sitting at home and sitting behind your desk is not where it happens. You have to get the courage to step out, build that relationship, fall on your face if you have to. You're going to be embarrassed. Who cares? Because everything that's waiting for you on the other side is so worth it. It will change your life, and it will change the life of others.
Such a powerful segue also in our third topic, which is all the magic that happens, it's happening outside of the comfort zone. And that is how we tap into greatness. And for a few of you that read my book and had a chance and opportunity to read From Fear to Greatness, Business, Sports, and Life Lessons, I took people on the journey, and I take people on the journey all the time so they can break free or to let go of their demons or face those demons, whatever those might be, whatever they're being portrayed to be, whatever all the stories, old stories that hold us hostage need to be let go. And how do we show up? I know it's early, we just started a week, right? We had opportunity here in US to celebrate Father's Day. We had opportunity to spend with the families. For the ones that don't have a family members or fathers, or to reminisce about the fathers or role models that were stepping in to be those fathers. We had a chance also to figure it out. It's like, what are we doing? What is our going to week look like? And a lot of times, a lot of very safe, predictable elements, right? But then with deeper calling, deeper understanding, specifically, as Joe pointed out, from leadership standpoint, things happens in discomfort. Things happen where we are really challenging ourselves, but we're still chosen to push forward. We're still chosen. I don't understand anything about this situation. I have reservation. And matter of fact, I have a resistance. And then question is, why do I have that reservation? Or why do I have that resistance? And what do I resist? Why can't I just at least be open enough to hear somebody? That same reservation, the same resistance I see all the time amongst the team within the organization. When we create barriers, when we create obstacles, where we create things that subconsciously, and if we look at deeper, we look at unconscious level, are holding us again hostage to be true, honest, and raw, honest to ourselves, to self, and then to the others. what we can and cannot do, or what we're willing at least to give a shot or contribute, maybe initially on a very small scale. And I'm talking about contribution, an everyday contribution in our righteous setup as humans, who we are, and our story, right? Who we are every day. What story do we tell ourselves? But what story do we tell to others that is beyond our title, beyond our position, but in the same time that brings all that beauty together? And only way for that beauty to shine is by opening that within us. So those stories, we can hear more of those. So please feel free to comment and share, and we'd love to hear that. And I love what Belinda just pointed out, importance of reinvention. So thank you so much for Belinda. And you spot on. We need to reinvent and let go and see of all those stuff as they joke around. My friend likes to use meat analogy, like as they trim the fat, it's like, and all the extra stuff, to get back to the pure core meat out of it. And what is that looking like? What is that when we take all of those extra baggage, all of those things that confuse us, the delay process, to make us heavy, to make us again resisting, how can we then go in the stage of reinventing ourselves? And with that reinvention, reinventing everything around ourselves. So that is the depth of the beautiful understanding of tapping into our own greatness, where we feel proud and on the best A game, when we feel like we're invincible, when we feel we have so much to offer, and we're so certain and confident of those gifts. And we're showing up with those gifts every day, and we don't have to have that extra boost and Pepsi or extra coffee just to get it going, because we're already there. That's what we're talking about. And that is where also you tap into great global community, when you find people beyond the borders around the world. Like right now, as the world messenger, I see this tremendous joy and opportunity at this moment at a time, just on this live. How many countries are being represented here? And how beautiful is that? And if we put a little airplane going around the globe and stopping on all of these points, how many countries and cities we will stop and end up actually looking and zooming in? And again, how powerful is that? Joe, what are your thoughts when you come specifically tapping into that outside of comfort to greatness? You definitely shared quite a bit of that, but how do you see connection between the greatness and showing up the best version of yourself, but also contributing on the levels that you never thought is possible?
The comfort zone is called the comfort zone for a reason. If you understand everything in your environment, and if you're very comfortable with everything you do and how you do it, then there's something wrong. Actually, it might sound a little judgmental, but the fact of the matter is we grow right outside of our comfort zone. We have to take that step across that line into discomfort, becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because if you know everything in your environment already, then there's no room for growth. If you know everything, if you're familiar with everything, if you have the same routine day after day, then nothing new is happening. It's like that old movie Groundhog Day. It's the same story over and over and over. And the fact of the matter is, as leaders in particular, we have to be growing all the time, whether it's through reading, interacting with people, getting outside your comfort zone, or in my case, stepping outside this big comfort zone piece and standing up and speaking out on behalf of other people in a way I've never done before in my life. Am I nervous? Hell yeah. Am I scared? Absolutely. Because sometimes we get online and we talk and we give advice and all the rest of it. You know what? It doesn't happen in the absence of nervousness. And it doesn't happen in the absence of fear. The great psychologist from the 1950s, Rollo May, said that courage is not acting in the absence of fear. It's acting in spite of the fear. The fear is never going to go away. So we have to figure out how to move through that.
And how many are fellow friends that are doing things and acting despite of fear, without knowing if they're going to see the loved ones, without knowing what's going to happen next, without knowing if they're going to be able to fulfill the mission, but they know they have to try, because what is the upside or what is the downside? And they've really go no matter what, because they know it's not just anymore just about themselves. Their mission is bigger than themselves. And we're seeing people stepping up and doing impossible, and as a result winning. We constantly see that it's not just the underdog story, it's more than that. It's that invincibility, because you know, if I don't do this, I'm going to perish anyway. Might as well let me try to do something that's going to change odds against me. And how is it possible for a small nation that has way less resources and way less opportunities to really still outsmart, outperform, and make something to hold and change and in a matter of fact win as a different outcome? Because we know losing is not the option. Now let me tell you, I want to share a powerful story with you guys that are still watching and listening, the ones that you'll be watching and listening after this live is over. When I was stuck in siege outskirts of siege Sarajevo and outskirts of Sarajevo for over 3 years. 3 years is an insanely long period of time. What if I tell you your next change or transformation or new job or new opportunity or things you are asking and expecting impatiently to arrive today will happen 3 years from now? What would you do? Would you just sit and wait? Would you lose your mind? Would you throw everything possible to change those odds? But what if I even would tell you, but it's not guaranteed? That may or may not happen, because all these variables that they depend for that outcome to happen. And why I'm also wanted to highlight something that Matthew shared very powerfully here. And Matthew, thank you for joining us. And just from this perspective, when we're seeing that one conflict is affecting the world in such a domino effect, because we were not conscious where the products are coming from. We were not conscious and fully aware. We just cared that they're there. We just cared that we had an app, we can make an order and expect delivery within same day or the next day. Instant gratification, instant fulfillment. And then we have disruption, and we now see that disruption as a nuisance and inconvenience. And how arrogant is that? When in reality is we should start understanding cause and effect. Effect of all of this, I don't like it. Trust me, nobody does. But let's look at the cause of that. Just because if we focus on effect that we are painfully aware that we don't like it and just making all of those comments without going to root understanding why and what we can do to make a change. Like, for example, I love what Matthew said. We see an implication that affecting Egypt, not Africa specifically, even UAE. Imagine other countries, smaller countries, with much more codependence because there was the only source to them. COVID disrupted supply chain, disrupted economies, disrupted so many things, manufacturing, delays in delivery, cost of delivery. We were forced to look for alternatives on a lot of products. We're also forced to look for alternatives for a lot of services. We're forced to revisit how we do our day-to-day business, what our offerings should be, how should we scale down on certain stuff or product or services, and how we should master those, or how in an area we can or have to scale up. Where do we need to adjust our cost? Smart companies today are not reacting to customer needs and noise by effect of what's lacking. They're looking to also address the root cause and problems and find alternatives. And in some cases, having 2 or 3 alternatives. So when they know that one is failing, they can jump on the second. And they can play with sometimes all 3 at the same time. And some don't have that luxury. They don't have luxury at all. Cost of protecting country in one nation, how small it is. It's shocking to see the costs on a daily basis, billions of dollars. This is what we heard this morning. Such a shocking number. But that is the reality. Small nation like that cannot thrive and support and preserve and endure and overcome without strategic partnerships. Nobody can, even the top gun companies around the world. So we have to be really, really honest. What are we dealing here with? And how does it have implication? And I'm just sharing this from global business perspective. And what those implications have for us. I love what Liga said. We need to share experience. We need to talk about them. When we know more, we do more. And to be honest, to continue my story, after 3.5 years and finding only one painful possibility for my escape, there was only one. All odds, everything was stuck on that one chance. Tremendous risk, tremendous fear. But I did not consider any other option. There was like something I was waiting for 3.5 years, dreaming of that possibility, and however risky and was insanely risky, I took it. And I said, at least I'd rather die knowing that I did possibly everything I can than being the one who's just was complacent and waited for something to happen and without taking any action and not having no control over it. Which one would you like to be? And that person you can be every day for yourself, for your family, for your working environment, and frankly, for your nation. But now we also have a bigger responsibility. Much bigger responsibility. I'm sure you guys can agree. And with that awareness, what real struggle looks like, if we don't talk about it, struggles that we're seeing just in the United States around the mental health issues, around so many complexities, around the challenges the family find themselves during the COVID, around the burnout, around children needing more than ever parenting and conversations, and parents available for them, adjusting how we do work, adjusting how we ask for help, adjusting how we lead as employers these employees. How do we revisit and look, what is the success looking like today? And what that success looks like to every single one of team players and all organization, and frankly, how is that success celebrated? Yes, we need to remind ourselves about the meaning of being really grateful for everything we have. Never take anything for granted. That is so very, very true. Because Joe can tell you from his experience, there was no milk and honey during the era he was in Russia. And it definitely is not milk and honey right now. And it's definitely a very, very challenging situation that we're seeing that is affecting all the neighboring countries. A lot of threats, a lot of anger, and things that can escalate. And how far we're willing to wait for those things than for us to act. Joe, please.
So Izabela shared a link, and she'll share it again, and we'll keep posting on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. Here's what I'd like you to do. I would like you to share that link as far and wide as you possibly can. And I want to link the things that we said earlier about playing a game. Okay, when I walked into that networking meeting and I had to create a game in my mind to reach a comfort level, to step across that comfort zone, to get outside of my resistance and get outside of my fear, you can create a game with this link and start a conversation with people you may have been hesitant to reach out to, people you've always wanted to be connected with, and make the conversation about Ukraine and make it about leadership and make it about helping others. And that would be a great way for you to start a relationship with other people that you know on LinkedIn and other social media, and help get this word out, because it's a small group that we have for Los Angeles. We're going to go past that to Chicago, New York, and Washington, and other cities in the coming months, to really do as much as we possibly can to help these people, regardless of whether the media is paying attention. We're going to start prodding them too to get these headlines back on the TV screen. But we need to do it. We can't wait for others to do it. And we can't wait for them, the media, to do it of their own accord. So let's nudge them a little bit to get this story back in the headlines where it belongs, because it's impacting all of us.
I love that message, Joe. And the links are here. You can see it on all 3 different platforms. But the key is, again, why we're standing so much behind Ukraine and why we're standing so much behind communities and people in diaspora that are also helping and corralling them now to centralize efforts and support to Ukrainians. Because not only I know the firsthand what that looks like, and from stories from over 120 countries, and refugees and torture, genocide, war trauma, and rape victims that I worked in addition to my own experience. But I also know that this is something I never expect I'm going to see. I'm been sitting on Global Genocide Coalition, and it's sad when president and people on the coalition that are relatives Holocaust survivors and generations of Holocaust survivors say, look at you and I with sadness and say, I'm afraid that we can truly never eliminate genocides from recurring again, because the magnitude of genocides that we've seen in most recent years, where our own companies are operating in the nations where we're doing trade or where we're codepending on economies, and when we know just from business side what implications are. So with that in mind, I really want you guys, again, as Joe said, whatever you feel compelled to do, because we're proven over and over. And one thing I wanted just to share, why I'm so proud of Arthur and Ukraine Now and his group of volunteers. First of all, he is a young man who has not been living in the United States for that long. His English is exceptional. His talents are spectacular. He came to this country as gifted young man with amazing talent in technology and specifically artificial intelligence, where so many Fortune 500 companies benefit from his skills. He came as a young genius in this country so that we can also tap in his genius here. During COVID, he stepped in and helped so many companies, including our government here in the United States. But he never believed or thought for a second that he will find himself 40 days prior on the caps of the war of his country. And that's when he formed Ukraine Now, and platform that he started building to run as a great hub for all the nonprofits. He turned into immediate platform for rescue mission. You guys will have a chance to hear from him in upcoming also lives, and what it meant for him and what still means for him every single day the war started. Implications where he has friends and family and loved ones still in the country. But guess what they did? They did not get stuck in bureaucracy. They did not get stuck in politics. They did not stuck in waiting to figure it out who will pass the ball. They just took it and ran with that. Outcomes of 40 days, over 3,000 volunteers actually right now that are supporting and helping them specifically around the globe in various capacity, including drivers from as far as Portugal or Sweden coming to different ports or borders around Ukraine and rescuing people with their personal vehicles because they felt they need to do something, and being involved in a direct rescue mission to save their lives in those most dangerous zones. And at the same time, coming up with a phenomenal plan where they were looking for opportunities where they were working on things such as delivering supplies, as Joe mentioned earlier. So the reason I'm just sharing this with you, dear friends, this is a perfect example. They're not getting paid. They're not spending a penny on anything but providing direct support where is needed the most. And that is why, for someone who runs nonprofit, who has been around nonprofits and knows how nonprofit game is played, they're right in the midst of the action. So let's help where it matters most, knowing that every penny we do give, it's going to make a difference and will save someone.
Today's a good time to get outside our comfort zone. Think about, even beyond Ukraine. We're talking about Ukraine. People need help, and we are able to deliver it. And then beyond that, think about your life. Think about who you are and what you've been afraid of and what you haven't had the courage to do, and what relationships and networking you've missed out on, what opportunities for growth you've missed out on as a result of convincing yourself that where you are right now is good enough and safe enough. There's actually no safe anymore. We have gasoline that's going through the roof. We have wars, genocide. We have politics gone amok. We've got polarization of politics. We have all kinds of things happening. I think that safety in traditional way that we think about it is an illusion. And I think largely it's been an illusion the whole time. We just didn't realize it. Well, the fact of the matter is the world is changing, and it's changing very, very quickly. And the only way for me to be quote unquote safe is to probably never leave my house. And that's not going to happen. So.
Seems like we lost the Joe for the moment, but that is okay. But what we want to make sure that in closing, you all have obviously amazing, tremendous opportunity. And thank you, Liga, for staying with us to the end. Thank you for caring so much. And thank you for everyone that participated, because your participation means tremendously so much to all of us. So back to Joe's closing before we wrap up this live for this week, for this actually first one of this week. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so basically, get up, stand up, get on with your life, get outside your comfort zone, think about people around you and what you can do to make 1 + 1 = 32 million.
That is amazing. Such a powerful message. And again, we will be sharing more. We're up to amazing stuff that's going to create a ripple effect that we're going to be also doing here for our gorgeous nation, and things that we need to improve and change and transform and re-innovate. And at the same time, everything that we're going to be doing together. So we will be sending links also for you to join to our global community that we're putting together, so you can be part of it. And right here, Matthew, it's the link that you can go directly to Ukraine right now, make a donation and use that link and spread the word, or however you think you can contribute with your networks. And Liga, Matthew, Akil, and thank you so much, Akil, for joining us. I really appreciate all of your support, because we're all in this together. And then Joe and I did not just started, obviously, with this here. We've been working on many different things behind the scene, but right now, moving forward, we'll be sharing what we'll be doing in other parts of the world, because world matters, and we're all connected, interconnected, and we'll be tackling one issue at a time. But right now, this one is having one of the greatest implications and ripple effect based on who our opponent is, and how this power can negatively, reversely affect not only one nation, but whole world reversely for decades and decades and centuries later. Thank you so much for all of your participation. We will look forward to speaking with you soon. Bye.